The Narcissists Who Almost Fucked Up, Part 3. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, explaining to you about those narcissists which looked like they fucked up, but actually they didn't, managing to dodge a curveball. So let's get down to business and find out who our next individual is. First up, it's Martha Stewart, the queen of home and hospitality, an American retail businesswoman, writer, and television personality. She was the founder of Martha Stewart Living Omnimedia, which sounds a bit Robocop-ish, doesn't it? And she gained success through a variety of business ventures encompassing publishing, broadcasting, merchandising, and e-commerce. She wrote numerous best-selling books, is the publisher of Martha Stewart Living magazine, and hosted a syndicated television program, Martha Stewart Living, which ran from 1993 to 2004. With a net worth of $1 billion in 2000, life was looking like a bowl of cherries for this domestic goddess. Fucked Upsville? Not only did she not know where it was, she had never even heard of it. But that all changed when she arrived at an airport to find a man waiting with a sign reading, Martha Stewart, Fucked Upsville. Someone was looking to chauffeur her to Dead End Drive, just along from the boulevard of broken dreams. According to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission, Stewart avoided a loss of only $45,673 by selling all 3,928 shares of her ImClone Systems stock on December the 27th, 2001, after receiving material, non-public information from Peter Bakanovich, her broker at Merrill Lynch. The following day, after her sale, the stock value fell 16%. On October the 3rd, 2002, Stewart resigned her position held for 4 months on the board of directors of the New York Stock Exchange following a deal prosecutors had made with an assistant to Bakanovich. On June the 4th, 2003, Stewart was indicted by a grand jury on 9 counts, including charges of securities fraud and obstruction of justice. Stewart voluntarily stepped down as CEO and chairwoman of MSLO, but stayed on as chief creative officer. She went on trial in January 2004. After a highly publicized 6-week jury trial, Stewart was found guilty in March 2004 of felony charges of conspiracy to obstruct, of obstruction of an agency proceeding, and of making false statements to federal investigators. She was sentenced in July 2004 to serve a 5-month term in a federal correctional facility and a 2-year period of supervised release, including 5 months of electronic monitoring. Dear, oh dear, ending up in chokey. Freedoms curtailed, reputation in tatters, company going to go down the sink, isn't it, as a consequence of all of that? Well, there was speculation that the incident would effectively end her media empire, and it would be off to Fucked Upsville she would go, head hanging. And that man still stood waiting patiently with that sign to take her to Fucked Upsville would get his eventual reward. But you know what she did? She handed that man a copy of a recipe book and decided that she was going to focus on chopping her cabbage. No, it's not a euphemism. So in 2005, Stewart began a comeback campaign. And her company returned to profitability in 2006. Stewart rejoined the board of directors of Martha Stewart Living Omnimedia in 2011, and then became chairwoman of her namesake company again in 2012. The company was acquired by Sequential Brands in 2015. Sequential Brands Group agreed in April 2019 to sell Martha Stewart Living Omnimedia, including the Emerald brand, to Marquee Brands for $175 million with benchmarked additional payments. Accordingly, Martha Stewart had a media empire and loads of money, and then, being stingy and trying to save a few tens of thousands of dollars, she committed a fraud. So she went to prison, but then she came out of prison, resurrected her career, and is worth $400 million and spends most of her time in a very well-appointed 152-acre Westchester property at Cantito Corners. The man with the sign has had to go and find someone else. Next up is Rasputin. There lived a certain man in Russia long ago. He was big and strong, in his eyes a flaming glow. Most people looked at him with terror and with fear, but to Moscow chicks he was such a lovely dear. He could preach the Bible like a preacher, full of ecstasy and fire, but he was also the kind of teacher women would desire. Rah, rah, Rasputin, lover of the Russian queen. There was a cat that really was gone. Rah, rah, Rasputin, Russia's greatest love machine. It was a shame how he carried on. Lyrics to a song that you're undoubtedly familiar with, and here he is, Grigory Rasputin, the Mad Monk. He was assassinated, which sounds like a permanent visa to enter and remain at Fuckstupsville. But in actual fact, let's learn more. On the 12th of July 1914, a 33-year-old peasant woman named Chionya Kosiva attempted to assassinate Rasputin by stabbing him in the stomach outside his home. Rasputin was seriously wounded, and for a time it was not clear if he would survive. After surgery and some time in hospital, he recovered. Thus, that plot spared for him at Fuckstupsville clearly wasn't going to be useful to him at that point. However, he did end up being murdered during the early morning on the 30th of December 1916 at the home of Prince Yusupov. He died of 3 gunshot wounds, one of which was a close-range shot to his forehead. Little is known about his death beyond this, and the circumstances of his death have been the subject of considerable speculation. It's said from a historian what really happened at the Yusupov home on 17th of December will never be known. The story that Yusupov recounted in his memoirs, however, has become the most frequently told version of events. Well, let's find out a bit more about that version of events to see if it accords with the necessity of Rasputin going up to Fuckstupsville, or whether actually he should escape it. According to Yusupov's account, Rasputin was invited to his palace shortly after midnight and ushered into the basement. Yusupov offered tea and cakes, which had been laced with cyanide. After initially refusing the cakes, Rasputin began to eat them, and to Yusupov's surprise, appeared unaffected by the poison. Hasn't fucked up so far. Rasputin then asked for some Madeira wine, which had also been poisoned, and drank 3 glasses worth. But he still showed no sign of distress. He's certainly not moving to Fuckstupsville. At around 2:30 a.m., Yusupov excused himself to go upstairs, where his fellow conspirators were waiting. He took a revolver from Pavlovich, then returned to the basement and told Rasputin that he'd better look at the crucifix and say a prayer, referring to a crucifix in the room, then shot him once in the chest. The conspirators then drove to Rasputin's apartment, with Sukhotin wearing Rasputin's coat and hat in an attempt to make it look as though Rasputin had returned home that night. Upon returning to his palace, Yusupov went back to the basement to ensure that Rasputin was dead. Suddenly, Rasputin leaped up and attacked Yusupov, who freed himself with some effort and fled upstairs. Rasputin followed Yusupov into the palace's courtyard, where he was shot by Purishkevich. Yusupov was away. Purishkevich shot him. Rasputin collapsed into a snowbank. The conspirators then wrapped his body in cloth, drove it to the Petrovsky Bridge, and dropped it into the Malaya River. Not looking too good for Rasputin, is it? Maybe he is moving to Fucked-Upsville. He was accused of being a rapist, a general sex pest, and someone who exerted unwanted influence on the Tsar. Seems pretty much that he's getting a rundown shack with a rat problem in Fucked-Upsville, but not so fast. This nutter had the time of his life. Sure, he was killed, but we're all going to wind up dead, and most people don't get anywhere near as the high jinks Rasputin got up to. He shagged left, right, and centre. He was prolific. He cultivated an image as a prophet and a mystic. He had befriended the imperial family of Nicholas II, the last emperor of Russia, through whom he gained considerable influence in the final years of the Russian Empire. Pretty good going from someone who was born into a peasant family. He enjoyed adulation alongside those that feared him. Meat and drink to a narcissist, of course. He got to hang out with the Russian royal family and all the privilege associated with that, and this gained him a reputation of an intriguing figure, which has him still talked about 100 years after his death. And he got a disco-stomping song written about him by Boney M., which still remains popular. Fucked-Upsville? No chance. This fellow had a ball. 2 more narcissists that have escaped from Fucked-Upsville. You want more? You've got more. Coming in part 4.